programme and for your insight. We now move over to the Indo-Pacific, where the 22nd Shangri-La Dialogue is now underway in Singapore. The dialogue is a major gathering of defence leaders from around the world and is Asia's most prominent defence summit. Representatives from 47 countries, including 40 minister-level delegates, over 20 chiefs of defence forces and more than 20 senior defence officials have convened for this summit, organised by the International Institute for Strategic Studies. The forum aims to address critical security issues in the Indo-Pacific. Prominent world leaders attending the dialogue include Macron, Kaja Kallas, the Vice President of the European Commission, and Anwar Ibrahim, the Prime Minister of Malaysia. French President Emmanuel Macron, speaking in Singapore during a landmark visit marking 60 years of diplomatic ties, had warned of a big risk of nuclear proliferation. In his keynote, the first ever by a European leader in the city-state, Macron also highlighted the growing divide between the world's two superpowers, calling it a danger to global stability. In a surprise move, China has opted to send a delegation from its National Defense University instead of Defense Minister Admiral Dong Jun. This marks the first time since 2019 that Beijing will not be represented at the ministerial level. However, US's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is expected to outline the Trump administration's strategy for the region in the first plenary session, which is tomorrow. 6 plenary sessions are scheduled, covering issues from cyber and out-of-space defence to maritime security, proliferation risks and crisis management. Singapore's Defence Minister Chan Chun Sing will speak at the closing session on enhancing security operation for a stable Asia-Pacific. President Tharman Shanmugaratnam will be hosting a dinner for delegates at the St. Regis, while Minister Chan will hold round tables and breakfasts for visiting defence leaders, including those under the 5-power defence arrangements. The 5-power defence arrangement comprise the countries of Australia, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore and the United Kingdom. The dialogue will continue through to June the 1st. We're now joined by Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who's an international security expert located in Singapore, to discuss this further. Thank you very much, Rohan, for joining us on the programme. This is a huge meeting of all different leaders, 47 different countries. Why is this summit such an important one in this point of 2025 when geopolitical tensions seem to be so high?
Shangri-La Dialogue is the most important defense forum in the world, and it attracts some of the best specialists and also government leaders, where they seek to address the real world challenges. So there's no other dialogue in the world that seeks to do this, and that is why over the years Shangri-La Dialogue has become the centerpiece of defense discussions at the highest level of government. Now, at this dialogue, the primary focus is the rise of China and, of course, the United States being governed by Trump, and whether there will be a conflict between China and the United States. China has very clearly indicated it wants to be an economic superpower, but it does not seek a military confrontation with the United States.
Yes, and Professor Gunaratne, let's go through some of the countries attending today. You've mentioned China, and it's only sent a university delegation. What type of message is this going to send to the rest of the countries who have sent high-level delegations? I mean, we have some top leaders at this.
It is for the first time the Chinese have done that, and it is a reflection of the current state of relations between the United States and China. It is no reflection on the part of the prestige of the Shangri-La Dialogue. So what is important is for the US leaders to recognize what has happened and to work with the Chinese, because today the world has come to a point where it is a multipolar world, and the United States in particular should recognize that there are other emerging powers, and the importance of all countries working together to build a stable and a secure planet.
Professor Gunaratne, you have two European powerhouses here, one being President Macron of France, and then you've got the top EU diplomat of Kaja Kallas there in attendance. One of the biggest critiquers of European defence spending has been Donald Trump. What kind of a message is Europe sending in sending these two very, very high-level diplomats, and obviously Macron, who is the French president?
President Macron has given a very clear message that Europe will be strong, will be powerful, and Europe in many ways will replace what Europe was before, when the United States steadfastly backed Europe. So the European countries have decided to become another powerhouse, so that the Russians or any other country, any other power bloc will not be able to challenge Europe. So we will see in the foreseeable future Europe also emerging as a major military power. And of course, France, Britain, these are the two main countries that will lead that effort in Europe.
Yes, and Professor, let's finish with the United States. We are expecting an address from US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Do you think it will continue the Trump administration's obvious tough line on China? What do you think the rhetoric he is going to push in his speech?
Certainly the US Defense Secretary will articulate exactly Trump's position. Trump doesn't want any of his staff to say anything else. But what is important to recognize is that the United States sooner or later will come to understand that they will have to work together with China to ensure a stable and a peaceful world. So I believe that this dialogue in Singapore will also enlighten and will give a new perspective to the American delegation, and they will communicate that to President Trump.
Professor Rohan Gunaratne, thank you very much for your insight and joining us on the programme. Well, that's all we have time for, and we will